Jaya Prabhuji. Hello, welcome to the Retroprogressive Yoga Institute. My name is Swami Omkarananda. I am a disciple of Prabhuji, and in this institute I share my reflections on the writings of my spiritual master. It's important for me to clarify that those are my understandings, the way I see, the way I apply to my life, the way that this message inspires me. But it's not necessarily the only way to understand Prabhuji, the only way to interpret his writings. And each one of you is really invited to read Prabhuji directly, to hear his many lectures, and to see how you apply it to your life. One of the things that I notice, and the reason I'm so fascinated by this path, is that it's open to the individual. We need to walk the path with our understanding. So the purpose of this lecture is not to convince on certain truth or path or superiority or certain practices, but just to share the inspiration. Prabhuji is really emphasizing that what will lead us to the truth is this wonder, this fascination, this curiosity, this attraction. So I find his message very encouraging, this, and for that we need to keep ourselves open. You know that Prabhuji explored many paths and also walk many paths. So his message doesn't bring one path as the only way, but we can get enriched and inspired by seekers before us that took the search of the truth to the heart seriously and kindly left their footsteps so we can follow and try to see what they saw. And it's an invitation. The book that we are working on this course is Tantra Liberation in the World. I find this revelation especially fascinating. I think it's very relevant, and what Prabhuji did in this book really is to bring us the spirit of the Tantrikas, their non-conformity, their urge, their courage to explore different paths, to bring to a very established and traditional society, to bring some fresh air of the ever encouraging and renewing search and curiosity of the human beings. And this is how they took a totally different direction, bringing new practices, new ways to see society, to see what are the purpose of life, and to explore with so many new techniques that proved to be so efficient, because really it brought a revival of the spirituality in India, so much so that from being in the beginning a very side and clandestine and esoteric revelation, it became merged with mainstream Hinduism. And today we cannot even imagine Hinduism without the beauty, the depth, the energy, and the colorful practices of the Tantra. We are in the lecture number 2 of the course number 3. So for whoever is jumping in now, I will recommend to start gradually. We are building up our knowledge based on the different chapters that Prabhuji developed. This book is full of information. It goes very much in detail of every stage of the development. And what we are doing here is more summarizing, giving the taste of it, maybe giving a global view that will help the readers to approach the book with more global understanding. And what else I'm trying to do is to bring from other sources, other places that Prabhuji speaks about these topics, and they're enriching and completing the message. In the lecture number 1 of this course, we spoke about the differences between the Shaivas that were initiated into the Tantric path and the Shaivas that continue the Puranic worship. And we went deeper into understanding the life and search of each one of them. In this lecture, we are going to see what happened actually. How was this passage from the worship of Lord Rudra to the worship of Lord Shiva, and the birth of this very prominent stream of Hinduism that is called Shaivism. For us that we see Shaivism, that we see Hinduism, we see that there are many different streams, and this is one of the beautiful features of this path, that it allows and understands that there are many ways to the divine, and there is no one superior or one inferior, but every person can be and feel inclined to certain paths. So it gives place to really a very great variety of worship. But the particular worship of Shaivism, it's one of the most popular. There are millions and millions of people worshipping in this way. This is an alive tradition, a very alive tradition, so much so that when you ask a Hindu person that follows Shaivism, he will tell you, I am a Shaiva. He will not necessarily say I am a Hindu, because Hindu is so broad. But Shaivism is very particular, and because it's so prominent, we are studying here the history of its development, because it was, of course, the basis of the Tantric revelation. In the previous course, we worked a lot on the following graph, and I want in this, because we are advancing and going deeper into more and more details, I want to work on this graph and understand more. So let's review what we studied so far, so we can take it a step forward. We learned that from the Vedic cult of Rudra emerged the Puranic cult of Shiva, and from within the Puranic Shaivas emerged the pre-tantric cults of the Ati Marga, that later on they will develop into the Tantric revelation, the Tantric cults of the Mantra Marga, and they will continue and bifurcate between Saidantika, the right-hand Tantra path, and non-Saidantika, the left-hand Kaula path. We learn the influence of the shamanic cult of the goddess and the birth of the Kaula tradition. What we will focus today is about this jump, how this happened from the Vedic cult of Rudra to the Puranic cult of Shiva. How was this development? How they came to be associated? So let's get started. From the Vedic Rudra to the worship of Shiva. Let's travel back in time to the times of the Rig Veda. It was a very ancient tradition, passed orally maybe for thousands of years, until it was put in written in the 1500 before the current era. In that collection, that Samhita of hymns to glorify the Vedic pantheon gods, we find Rudra is a minor god, is the god of thunder, of hunting, of war, of explosive and destructive forces in nature. Devotees were terrified from Rudra. They plea to calm his anger, because we see this anger in the explosion of volcanoes. We see it in the anger that we find in storms, very destructive forces. They were fearful forces. So the devotees try to praise him and really pacify him. If we continue the development, we come to the collection, to the Samhitas that we find in the Atharva Veda and the Yajur Veda. Those are later texts that were put in writing about the 1000th of before the current era. We see a very interesting development in this stage, in which Rudra developed his position. His benevolent character has been revealed. So now we see that there is another aspect of Rudra that beside or behind this anger and destruction, he has a benevolent aspect. So what the devotees do when they invoke and they try to please Rudra is to say, show us your benevolence, protect us. The Atharva Veda also describes a universal form of Rudra. So notice how we see here a change of character of this god. Let's continue our travel in time. We are now in the year 800 before the current era. This is the time in which the Aranyakas were put in writing. Aranyakas are part of the Vedic corpus, and those are commentaries on the hymns that we see in the Samhitas, and continuation of the commentaries that we find in the Brahmanas. In this section, we see how Rudra continued to raise his prominence and importance within the many gods, now becoming the one God that is present in all. Now he's associated with Brahman. Brahman is the God that is everything and all. It's the one God, the one substance that everything is made of. It's the one consciousness. Is also considered the root of this world, the origin and the creator of this world. We keep traveling and we arrive to the time of the Upanishads. The Upanishads are the culmination of the Vedic corpus. They are the end, the conclusion, the highest revelation. They were put in writing around the 500 before the current era, and when we say dates, it's the day that they started to be put in writing. We have later stages, later revelations as well. In the Upanishad, Rudra is elevated to the highest position. It is the ultimate reality. Now we see the emergence of that ultimate reality that includes all, is the origin of all, is the end of all. Rudra in the Upanishads, he is the origin, he is the creator, he is the one that is omnipresent in everything that is the background, the raw material, the divinity itself that encompasses all. Following the journey along the history of the Vedic revelation, we arrive to the time in which the Puranas were put in writing. It's about the 250 of the current era. Those are the Smritis, those scriptures of the sages who remembered and put in writing what they heard and what they understand. Those Puranas brought the worship of Lord Shiva, and in the time of the Purana, Rudra is Shiva. Shiva comprises within himself the three aspects of creation. And in this time, the relationship between Rudra and Shiva is consummate, and they are identified as the same God. So we see here a fascinating development that's starting from the Rig Veda as the god Rudra, the god of thunder, the roar. Rudra is roar because he's angry and he's destructive. We need to pacify him, we need to beg him. Then we have the Yajur Veda, the Atharva Veda, in which we are starting to develop that it has another aspect that is benevolent, and it can give protection to those who worship him. We continue with the Aranyakas. The Aranyakas go and explore the more mysterious and aspect of this God that start becoming very prominent among the many gods that are praised in the Samhitas. And we find that he is actually the God in all, that he is pervading in every corner of creation. And we continue in the Upanishads, the Vedanta, the culmination of the Vedas, in which we know that Brahman is the ultimate reality and Rudra get to be associated with the ultimate reality. And then we discover that Rudra has many aspects and Shiva is another name for Rudra. And then we see the explosion of the development of the Shaivism, in which Shiva becomes identified with Rudra as one of and the same God. But what happened here? Why is this development? First, we can see the astonishing flexibility and fluency of the revelation. This is something that's fascinating. When I come to study this, I don't come to study historical events. It's not the level of the scripture, society, or phenomenology of the human being. I am fascinated by the human search and by this heart of this animal, this Homo sapiens that is never satisfied, that wants to know himself. It's a fascinating urge. And then this openness to explore the mystery from different angles, to experiment with different types of worship, to call the mystery in different names. So here in the Hindu searchers, or Indian searchers, because Hinduism is a much later term, we see a group of people that the spirituality is the main thing, and they went through many calamities in the material, on the material plane, from famines to conquests and invasions and nature disasters. But the flame of the worship to the divine, of the search, past loyalty till today, from father to son, from master to disciple, keeping alive this tradition of devotion, of exploration, of mystery, of magic, of unsettlement, of realization, and moreover, keeping the direct experience as possible, as doable, and as alive. We owe really to those who dedicate their life and keep and realize themselves. We owe this flame that arrived in today in such a materialistic society that we became. I mean, Hinduism described that this is the curse of the humanity, to go through circles of development and destruction. And we are considered to be living in a very dark age of Kali, the age of forgetfulness, and only enough to see around, to see how truth is this, that seems that there were times that spirituality is all what was, to be in contact with nature, this wonder of the relationship with the beyond, and now we feel to be in control and self-sufficient, as if we can do anything, of everything by ourselves. So let's explore these stages that these seekers went through over the years. In the search, we can observe that in the beginning of the Vedic times, there was a relationship between the human beings and the powers of nature. And they didn't see it as an impersonal or nature or mechanic phenomenon, but as acts of the gods. So every phenomena in nature was explored, identified, and assigned to a different type of deity. And they saw themselves as interacting with these deities and trying to understand how to please them, how to pacify them, how to ask them for prosperity. It was a very personal relationship of humans with nature. With our modern eyes, if I can put it between quotation marks, we can see this as a very primitive way to look around. In my eyes, honestly, I'm a bit envious of them because they had a relationship. They have awe, admiration, respect, fear, and they were connected in a very mysterious way with their understanding and trying to be grateful for whatever is received and offering this in return in the ways of sacrifice. Sacrifice is a way to give back and taking the best that nature gives and offering back to the deities. In the praise, the Vedic rishis sit to connect to these forces and praise them with so many names and beautiful poems. And it was a symbiotic relationship of the natures and the deities caring for humanity and for the all living beings. Of course, they were protecting of all type of living. That's how vegetarianism was developed, and they were just nature themselves from whatever nature gives. And this is how they develop a very beautiful and harmonious society based and centered on the spirituality. Then we see how this human search continue to develop, and the rishis, the seekers, really, the next stage that we can identify is looking for the energy behind nature. So they have this relationship with the deities, but are the deities acting independently? Are they all unified? There is one energy that causes this force. They look around and they see movement and dynamism and energy and phenomenons and life. And what is the living energy? What is the power that operates and put all this creation in motion? What are the mystery of this thousands stars? They trying to analyze the star, to look around to see who we are in this immense universe. What is that energy behind? And they start incorporating the idea of monotheism. Must be one God that is in charge of all this. Could be that one God, and instead of us praising or looking or satisfying all the different forces, all the different deities, maybe we need to concentrate on that one that is behind everything. And with him or with her, we need to develop our loving and devotion and relationship and pacification and praising, because there might be one behind all them. So how do we recognize this one God behind the multiple gods? So there might be different ways to do this jump from multiplicity, from unity, from pluralism to monotheism. One is that might be one of the gods that is superior to all the rest, and the rest of the gods is subordinated to that one. Another way to do this passage is to see that there is one God and actually has many names. But behind the many names of the gods, there is one that they refer to that one God. Another way to do this passage is to see that there are many different functions in nature. So we can group the functions by gods. So there are different gods that together they're actually fulfilling the same function. So they are in fact the same God. So by this development, we see how the god Rudra, that was one of the deities in the Rig Veda, one of the pantheon, they start slowly getting the attention and the worship of the seekers, because he might be the one that is behind all this multiplicity of gods, function, nature, forms, names. And this is how we see the place of Rudra becoming more and more prominent as the scriptures are put it in writing. How we see that in the number of times that he is mentioned, in the way that he is described. So this is how we can observe the different stages that the attention of the seekers go and focus on the god Rudra. So let's summarize this process that we learned so far. From many to one. In the first stage, we see Rudra as the god of destructive forces. In the second stage, we see Rudra identified with Shiva, the good and the bad. What is this identification? There is also an aspect in Rudra. He's not only the distractor, he's also the protector. He has a benevolent aspect of him, and this is Shiva. And we will learn soon how this identification happened. Stage number 3, Shiva is the god of destruction within the Trinity. We have this Trinity of the later development, which is the creator. We said that they started unifying the different functions and grouping the different gods to go this from multiplicity to monotheism to unity. So they said, okay, basically if we look at all these forces, we can group them in 3 different categories. We have creation, something is creative. We have preservation, it's kept alive, kept kept as it is, and then it's distracted. So we find the circle of creation, maintenance, and destruction. Creation, maintenance. And if we summarize, if we want really to do this synthesis that we are going through, we will notice that everything goes through these three stages. So might be that there are three gods. One is in charge of creating, one is in charge of preserving, and one is in charge of destroying. And this is how we see the birth of the Trinity within Hinduism. While the creator is assigned to the Lord Brahma, the preserver to Lord Vishnu, and the destroyer is Rudra, the famous destroyer that we know from the Vedas, now with the name Shiva. From this stage of the Trinity, we will see in later on how different streams among Hinduism develop. We have the mainstreams being Shaivism, Vaishnavism, and Shaktism. And the difference between them is who they see from this Trinity, the one God as superior. So within Vaishnavism, it will be the Lord Vishnu that in the Trinity is considered the sustainer. He will become the one who completes all the functions of creation, destructions, and preservation. Within Shaivism, that is the topic of this course, we will see how Lord Shiva is the one who takes the form of Brahma to create, this form of Vishnu to sustain, and the form of Shiva, Bhairava, Rudra to destroy. But then two more forces are assigned to the Lord Shiva, and one is the force of concealment, and the other one is the force of unfoldment or grace. So we see that we are so blind to reality, but Lord Shiva is the one who is hiding the truths that we see, the one behind this multiplicity from our eyes. But with our worship, purification, and urge to find the truth, he will unveil this illusion and we will see the truth. And for that, we worship him, we praise him, and we develop our relationship with him. Still, we are curious about seeing how this happened. How is this jump happened? So significant, right? For creating the basis of the Tantric revelation. How the Lord Rudra came to be associated with Shiva. And what are these two aspects? Rudra and Shiva are the same, are different. Can we understand further? So I find no better explanation than studying the Śrī Rudram. Śrī Rudram is one of the hymns of the Vedic revelation that show us many aspects of this merge of Rudra and Shiva. Let's study about it. Śrī Rudram. It is considered one of the most sacred and powerful hymns in Hinduism. It appears in the Taittiriya Samhita of the Krishna Yajurveda, and it is considered as one of the 108 Upanishads. It is offered to the all-pervading Brahman designated as Rudra-Shiva, present in auspicious behind form as well as terrible forms, which he assumes at the time of dissolution and the destruction of the cosmos. Śrī Rudram, very powerful and important hymn of Hinduism. This is chanted till today for the most sacred yajnas and sacrifices in the most sacred night of Shivaratri, and it is being repeated daily by many seekers. Śrī Rudram is a fascinating topic that I invite you to explore further. But what we will explore today is how the Śrī Rudram contains many of the answers that we are looking for to understand this merge of Lord Rudra and Lord Shiva. Those are the topics that we will explore. Topics of Śrī Rudram. 1. One God, many forms. 2. Rudra and Shiva are one. 3. God as benevolent and terrifying. 4. Shiva as the creator. 5. Shiva as immanent and transcendent. One God, many forms. Here is one of the verses of the Śrī Rudram. Salutations to Shiva and his many forms. A very intriguing aspect of God present in this wondrous hymn is that God is existing in both the aspects, the good and the bad, the beautiful and the ugly, mortality and immortality, existence and non-existence. The Shatarudriya, or the 100 names of Rudra, of the Yajurveda, praises different aspects of the one God and is a powerful hymn that praises Rudra and asks for his blessings and protection. One God, many forms. In this development of the human search that we learn today, that passing from nature worship to the many aspect, to the one aspect, there is an astonishing development and the level of the soul, of the collective soul, if we can call it this way, because as a group, as a generation, as a lineage, they go and adapt the flexibility of relationship with the mystery by being loyal to their revelation. Now the Śrī Rudram gives us this hint. Can be one God that assumes different names, 100 names of the Rudra. That, how come? Yes, there is such a thing. So what happened? When we explore the world, we see multiplicity. This principle gives us the hint that can be something that assumes many forms, but together with that doesn't stop to being one. So the search is for the one unifying behind all this multiplicity. So this not only gives a liturgy or a mythology, it gives a direction to look at. Look what is behind. Is there something in you that is not influenced by the multiplicity of the sensory perception? What is that one thing that is behind all the different forces? Look there, look for it. And they give it a name, Rudra. They give it a name, Shiva. Shiva assumes many forms, and this is what the Śrī Rudram explains. 2. Rudra and Shiva are one. Here the verses from the Śrī Rudram. Salutations to the auspicious and propitious Shiva. Salutations to the fierce and terrible one. Rudra has two forms, Ghora, or terrible form, and Shiva, auspicious form. Rudra and Shiva are not two, but one. The Brahmana text, which interprets the Rudram, states, Rudra is verily this fire. He has two forms, one terrible, the other auspicious. If a man does sacrifice to him by chanting the Rudram, that man pacifies the terrible form. Here we start to see their opposite. Their opposite, there is a duality. This word is the word of duality. The terrifying and the auspicious, the destructor and the protector. How come they can be the one? They're opposite. This doesn't make sense. There is something. There is a step in the search where we need to go beyond this mental logic of the pair of opposites. We know famously that this is how this word is called, the dvandva, the pair of opposite. Maybe if we go behind, what step forward, we'll find that those are not two different things, but there is one reality behind what we interpret as opposite. And we have the possibility to pacify the terrifying if we understand that it's not different. So this not only gives us a theory, this gives us a way of life. Because how we live, we constantly categorize what happened to us, people, things, as good and bad. And there is either good and bad. Maybe what we consider bad is actually developing me, is good for me. Maybe what we consider good is actually stuck in me and it's not helping me to advance. So more than anything, this is an invitation to merge the opposites of our life and to look for the unifying factor that the Retroprogressive Yoga says ultimately you will get to this background, the background of awareness that projects upon itself all this variety of opposites, but it's unaffected. It's that the one nature, and this is towards that direction the Śrī Rudram is taking us, to the realization of the all-embracing Brahman that is present in every cell, in every act of awareness, in every aspect of our lives. So the direction is from this chaos and diversity and opposition to this unity, harmony, union. 3. Benevolent and terrifying. The Śrī Rudram says, "May the Lord with 1,000 eyes and blue throat, who is known as Shiva and Rudra, inspire us." This hymn is unique because it focuses on the idea of God, not only associated with the ideas of pleasant and good, but also with the idea of dreadful and destructive. God permeates everything in manifestation, including aspects deemed not ethical by the purists. We have Shiva and Rudra. Both are praised together in the same mantra in the Anukara 3 of the Śrī Rudram. Those are two names of the same God. One means terrifying and the other one means benevolent. And by doing that, it takes us a step forward in the way to communicate and connect to the mystery. Meaning, not look for it only in the beautiful things in nature, but also in the dreadful aspects of life. There are 2 points here that I can feel the spirit of the Tantra awakening in this attitude. One is the fact that they are not things that are disgusting or prohibit. The explanation says that we have an ethical and mental separation of what is pure and what is impure. The Tantra will come to challenge this separation and says that everything is part of the divine, everything is divinity. So by experimenting with the things that we were programmed or conditioned to reject, we are going towards an integration, and only by integration will come liberation. So we start seeing here how the basis it's being built. But I see another aspect as well. The aspect that Rudra is the God of everyone, is the God of the dark aspects of me, in me, my dark tendencies, and also the dark aspects of society, of the Vedic society. Nobody is excluded because we are all divine creatures. So Rudra, with time, and we will go deeper into in future classes, it becomes the Lord of the thieves, the Lord of the cheaters, the Lord of those who goes in the night, the God of those who go into the darkness. So, but the gods of the rejected ones, of the untouchable. So we see here the foundation of an integration of everyone underneath the same one divinity. So with the tantric revelation come also a social change that deleted this division of classes, those who are worthy of repeating the Vedic mantras and those who cannot even repeat them because they are not belonging to the right class. That will be gone with the tantric age. And here we see how the spirit of inclusion is being portrayed, and we see this will be the spirit of the Tantra. 4. The Creator. Salutations to Rudra, the creator of all beings. Rudra is the cause of both the significant and the minor, In essence, the salutations to Rudra serves as a reminder of the psychical nature of existence, where destruction and creation are two sides of the same coin. By recognizing Rudra as the creator of all beings, we acknowledge the inevitability of change and transformation, and seek to align ourselves with the divine forces that shape our lives. The Creator. You know that the concept of Creator is not obvious. We find it in many religions, but it was not so obvious from the beginning of times. Is this manifestation really created at certain point, or maybe it ever existed? And there are different ways to answer this. There is one personality that creates everything, so who created that personality? So what is creation really? And this path brings these psychical times where creation is just one of the stages. Destruction is inevitable. When there is creation, destruction will follow. So the search is not to perceive creation, because creation without destruction would not even be creation, right? If something can be created, it also can be distracted by definition. We are looking for what is behind all this. And if there is a creator, so it's Rudra, there is one creator, how I connect that and how these circles affect my life. You know, we are born with the curse of temporality, that we don't know really if it's a curse or a blessing, because we always feel, and if you check, maybe we will find as well, it seems that there is something that we know for sure that we are temporal. We know that this trip will go back. I came from somewhere, I don't know exactly from where, I don't know where I will go back. But for sure I appear in this trip. This was a bus that was running, and I went into the bus and I enjoyed this ride, wild ride. At a certain point I need to go back and go down from the bus. But this journey, these circles of life, they are influencing the way that I see, right? And when I go out, there is in the background, if we check carefully, a feeling that something is not going to end. And it didn't start it. So when we come and study creation, the proposal of the Tantra is to go inwards and said, my creation. Was I created? It started at some point. When you started, if you remember, when was the day of your creation? You remember the day of your creation? You were born, appear in this world, you don't remember. At a certain point, you were aware that I exist. I exist as an independent entity. And now I live as a separate entity. Are you sure? Are you sure? And then one day I know that I will cease to exist. Are you sure? The invitation of the Retroprogressive Yoga is into the exploration of the assumption that we were taught. And this is something that Prabhuji emphasizes over and over. We are a lump of assumptions. We learn many of the things that we consider truth. We learned them. We didn't know them. We didn't come with them. It was a certain convictions that we have been taught, because otherwise we will not get to this perspective of life. And he challenged us to question them and to check and to go deep and to try to meditate without this feeling. If we break down the experience and the experience only, not the mental world in which we live, but the experience, we will simplify, and Prabhuji says, to 4 things: sensations, perceptions, thoughts, and feelings. And from this emotional, sensual experience, we create a definition. But what they are awareness, because this is what they're made of, what the sensation is made of. Awareness. Without being aware, I cannot even feel. So if you break everything down, you will get to one background, to one reality that it make everything to consciousness. And in the tantric path, consciousness is identified with Shiva. 5. Immanent and transcendent. To the Rudra, who is fire, who is in water, who is in trees and plants, who has entered into the entire universe, to that Rudra, let our salutations go. We will speak again about this verse now in the context of the immanence and transcendence. The magnificent hymn sets aside the extra cosmic notion of God that people sometimes entertain in their religious belief system and introduces the deeper knowledge that God is not merely the extra cosmic creator of the universe, but He is also immanent in every particle of creation. Who is God? How can I even understand God? Can I ever really know the mystery? The spiritual path tells you that yes, you can. Yes, you are able to. Yes, you were gifted with the precious gift of self-awareness. You can just live life, but if you want, you can embark in a trip of self-discovery. And this is the example of the Tantrikas of all times. Immanence means that God is here, it's not distance. And if you think about the human being looking for divinity, he can also think, okay, I was created, everything was put in motion, and I was forgotten. There is no divinity here. I should not worship or praise someone. I just need to live my life to the best of my understanding. Oh no, this was not the way that they wanted to live. A life of materialism, a life of independence, of pride, of I will do it by myself with my own understanding. No. I am part of divinity. Divinity is in every particle. And this is how later on we see this approach appearing and flourishing really in the Shaktism, where he says that this divine mother is actually the one who operates, and the dynamism of Shiva. So this will go and develop into the Tantra, and how the practice will move from being a ritual to some external force, or to some devotional that I create certain relationship, to be absorbed in the worship of my very energy, the energy that operates my body. This is divinity. So in the Śrī Rudram we see God is in the fire. Fire, it seems something inert, not alive. No, it's God in the fire, it's God in the water, it's God in you, it's in every particle. So search, and this attitude will lead to the later development that tells you that to find God, you don't need to go you don't need to wait till you leave the body. You don't need to go to the distant galaxies. God is in the microcosmos. God is happening in your very experience. And Prabhuji will say, God is the awareness that operates. And you, as someone, are not existent. Look for yourself and you will find God, because you will find that there is not something that you can call yourself. So many more things in this very rich hymn of the Śrī Rudram, but those are the points that I want to emphasize in showing a development of the search from multiplicity to search and intrigue to the discovery that there is one thing. And how they discover? Because they went and explored and experienced. All this, it's not bringing a theory, an aspect, a point of view, a philosophy. Is their own experience explaining and manifesting in the way of praise and hymns, because what cannot be explained, it can be chanted, and this is a sentence of Prabhuji. So what I want to finalize this is by sharing some of the attitude of the retroprogressive yoga towards mythology. There are many ways to approach mythology, and some judgmental, rational mind might say those are really story kids who can even deal with this, how adults can even engage in this type of worship. There are others that they're completely devoted and feel the veracity of this in their vibration, in their heart, in the devotion that they feel towards it. Prabhuji has a very unique approach to mythology, and he really speaks about this very much, and he is by himself a big bhakta and dedicate many of his time to the worship, the expression of love. He said, what is the search for truth without love for the divine? This is impossible. It's the glue that connects you to your inner self, your higher self, and to ultimately the merge of the one, of the piece with the whole. In this talk that he gave, he spoke about mythology, and I want to share it with you. The mythology means something that cannot be explained directly, is explained through a mythos. For example, the Greeks, they explained that time is Chronos, the god Chronos, and what the god Chronos did. He eats his sons, because time is something that destroys or kills. What is the product of time is killed by time. So the mythos is something that not necessarily is truth, but indicates or teaches the truth. We say it's a lie that teaches the truth, that indicates the truth. This is the symbol. Many times we said the symbol is to unite, the jumping from Thales de Mileto, when he jumped from the mythos to the logos. Many people think that he said, okay, until today we had mythos, chronos, and that explanations of the nature. Now we have logos. Now we think. Now we understand. The jumping from the mythos to the logo was retroprogressive. They didn't throw the mythos and said, now only the logos. No, no, no. Logos can be thinking, logical. Now we find in the mythos the logos. We can discover into the myth to that the myth points. Previously, we were in the myth, but many didn't really penetrate the myth and understand the myth, what the myth indicates. We jumped to the logos, but we don't throw the myth. So the gods continue. But now we understand that the myth indicates something. And then they say, what is today logos, tomorrow will be myth. And then the symbology, that we say symbolo is something that unites and devolo separates. Unite with what you found in union with the truth through the symbolo, the masks. So you find in Tantra a lot of different symbolics. It is infinite, but it's all pointing to what cannot be explained. Prabhuji. This is a very profound approach to mythology. He said, it's a symbolism, but what is a symbol? It's something that unites. If it's true or false, it's an irrelevant question. It's the same like asking if a poem is true or false. Meaning, it's not the matter. The question is what that makes in you, to where it brings you. It connects you to your emotion, to a deeper way to see. It enriches you. The myth enrich our search. And this is the validity of them. This is what makes them true. Know if there is really a God in that shape, with that form. But what they point to cannot be explained in words. That's before the language, before the concepts, before this division that happened to us by the egoic phenomenon. So the myth is something that unites with the supralogic, with what was before creating all these convictions. And the fact is that when you truly and sincerely connect to the mythos, you feel this integration. You feel that you reunite with something that you miss so much and you were craving for it. And whoever goes into the adventure of being part of a myth, they that become the center of their life. It's like to get in love. When you can live without somebody to love, right? You can really fulfill our functions. But the myth or the love brings meaning and enthusiasm and connection and merging and all the most beautiful aspects of life. Prabhuji explains here a passage because in the Greek and ancient mythology we have many symbols, a lot of symbolism. And then over time they become more rational, and they famously said that Thales de Mileto did a jump from the mythos, that was kind of a believing in illogical forms and stories, to the logos. Means now we are logic, we think, we analyze, we make science, we explain the phenomena in a rational way. What Prabhuji says, this is not the intention of it. He says, now we understand the mythos. We put understanding into the myth. We put our logic in the service of the myth. So we understand that they have a deep symbolic contribution to our life. So we don't throw the myth and say, now we are materialist, now we are rational, now we are logic. No, this is not the invitation. The invitation is to understand what they come to teach us, what this myth come to teach us. And in this spirit, he says the Tantra brings a lot of myths and a lot of symbolism. So now we embark in studying this book and this revelation, let's keep this attitude that Prabhuji brings in mind when we will encounter so much symbols and different goddesses with different elements and trying and bringing different teachings, evoking in us different feelings, and all this, it's our experience of exploring whatever cannot be explained with logic or words, but by the impact of the tantric myth, we can hopefully sink into these understandings and let the revelation appear and overcome the veil of our duality, illusion, egoism. So with this hope, we will continue and explore the Tantric revelation. I hope to meet you in the next class. Very grateful for Prabhuji for giving us the taste of it, opening us to a mystery and a treasure really that we inherit from the Tantrikas, and helping us to look at this in a way that it will be beneficial for our search. So we will meet in the next class. Jaya Prabhuji.